Welcome to the Panic Room, where we talk about all things panic-inducing. I am the Queen of Panic. Warning, some episodes may contain content that may be disturbing to others. Viewer discretion is advised. Now let the games begin. I had spent the night at a friend's house to celebrate Halloween. There were Jolly Rancher shots, some s'mores made as an appetizer, pizza, and tons of beer. We celebrated it with at least 5 other people who just didn't have plans for Halloween but didn't want to stay home. It was honestly a great time, for the exception of almost choking on the pizza. That night, I barely remembered falling asleep. The last thing I remembered was that I went to blink after Travis, one of my friends at the party, told this hilarious joke about his ex-girlfriend. She really was a horrible person that only wanted him to get to his friends. So, the fact that he told us hilarious jokes about how much of a bullet he dodged not only made us laugh, but made us happy for him that he was finally getting over her. I was in a deep sleep on what I thought was the couch. However, the more that I sobered up, the more that it felt uncomfortable to move. I slowly opened my eyes to see if it was how I slept, or something to that effect, as I kept hearing a drop of water and felt the cold air hit my face. As I woke up, I regretted it immediately, not just because I ended up puking, but because I was tied down with Ziplocs, and who I saw on the stairs. Caroline? Is that you?
What do you think?
She said in almost a demonic tone. Where am I? What the fuck is going on? I struggled to get free, but realized that there was no way out of it. She moved closer to me, with blood dripping down to the floor.
You ran me over, Jack! You then tried to bullshit that you weren't on the road that night. The courts might believe you, but...
She said, wagging her finger that had maggots crawling through it and other parts of her body.
You and I both know what happened. What really happened.
She said in an aggressive, demonic tone. At this point, I could smell rotting meat coming from her decaying corpse. Please, it was a mistake!
Oh, a mistake? You failing to accept being dumped? Or drinking so much that you thought it would be hilarious to hit me with your shitty car? Or perhaps burying me alive in some field and then pretending it never happened was a mistake? Personally, all 3 seem to be your last mistake.
She looked at me with her once beautiful, seductive eyes as her corpse sat in my lap. The fear that surged throughout my body was paralyzing, but not enough to ignore the pain of her sharp, jagged teeth that quickly dug into my neck as her sharp claws forced their way deep into my arms. I tried to scream for help, but I knew it was pointless. She whispered into my ear just before I died.
You taste as sweet as candy. How fitting on the only night that my soul could gain vengeance. Now if only your soul didn't taste like shit.
And after that, everything went black. My sister and I didn't always get along, but whenever there was some mischief just around the corner, you could always guarantee we would go for it. We had been like this since we were kids. Usually, it would be my sister's brilliant idea to do it, and because I was bored and sometimes gullible, I went along with it. However, as time moved forward, we didn't cause as much chaos as before. This, as you could imagine, was a great relief for Mom and Dad. Out of the blue, Dad promised that we were going camping this summer. To give some context, Dad was a pretty strict military man who never seemed to take his uniform off. Metaphorically speaking, of course. He thought camping would be a great excuse to train us to survive in the woods if the need ever arises. Personally, I really didn't care for any of it, and after years of hearing the same broken promise, I truly didn't think we were going. By this point, my 14-year-old brain only cared for video games and possibly hooking up. So, imagine my surprise when my sister said, "Hey Carlos, I hope you bring your A game. Mom and Dad said I could bring my friend Aubrey." Aubrey was a very thin, red-headed girl. She had cute freckles that she may not have cared for, but it made my heart race, and my ass of a sister knew this. So of course she laughed as I blushed. "Ha, don't worry, bro. Everything is all set. Just gotta be yourself and not make an ass of yourself." I glared at her and said nothing. You could just say thank you, you know. Otherwise, I can just tell her to stay home because you don't want her there," Delia said as she started to reach for her phone. "Fine, thank you," I said begrudgingly. See, was that so hard? Anyway, we need to go over a couple of things she likes and she doesn't like. I was weirded out by this, but figured that it wouldn't hurt my chances. So I listened and bought a few things to try to win her over, and placed it away in my bag. Thankfully, our parents weren't the kind to search our bags, unless they suspected something was off about it. Dad made the arrangements and then put our stuff in the SUV. Wish I could tell you what kind it was, but I'm just not a car kind of guy. It took about 30 minutes to pack everything that we would need, an additional 45 minutes to go pick up Aubrey and load her things into the SUV as well. Not really sure if this makes a lick of a difference, but I'm a rather shy guy, so it was hard to start up a conversation. It didn't help that my sister and Aubrey had an easier time talking about random things like the guys at school, how much fun the trip would be, etc. To Delia's credit, she did continue to try to be my wingman and get me involved in their conversations. By the time we reached the campsite, I was emotionally drained and didn't think I had a chance in hell of getting a date with Aubrey. Accepted this and was ready to at least try to enjoy myself. I thought that it was better to make the best out of a bad situation than to suffer for the whole trip. Delia and Aubrey went to explore for a bit as I helped Dad get the camp fully set up. Mom didn't want to say it, but I could tell she was done with Dad's 27 military attitude and probably would have killed him if I didn't step in. A wave of relief washed over me as I found myself having fun, remembering funny stories with Mom and Dad and talking about the hiking trip tomorrow. To be honest, I had almost forgotten about my crush being with us until the girls came back from their walk. To this day, I will never understand how women can talk so much, but I tried not to care. "Hey, Mom and Dad, do you mind if we show something to Carlos? It's this really cool spot that looks down into a beautiful lake," Delia said in an excited tone. The way she was that excited for a lake left me knowing that she was up to something yet again, and I begged my parents to let us go there. I had a funny feeling there was more to Delia's words, that she wasn't going to lead on, but I didn't care. Anything to clear my mind over the fact I was 100% sure that I blew it with Aubrey was a blessing. Even if Aubrey would be there. So after much convincing, we were finally able to go. To be honest,
I wish we hadn't gone at all. The girls let me in on their plan, and I knew I was going to hate every degrading second of it. So, it's pretty simple. After talking it over, I'm willing to go on a date with you on one condition. I knew this wouldn't be good, and I swear on everything that if it wasn't for teenage hormones, I would have told her to fuck off. After all, I knew deep down that not only was she not interested in me, but she had plans to have fun at my expense, and my sister wasn't going to do anything about it. Looking back, I wonder if my sister truly was in on it all, because she thought it would be just a harmless prank. Or did she go along with it due to teenage peer pressure? Either way, what happened next would change everything. I don't expect anyone to believe me, but if I didn't get it off my chest, I was probably going to lose my mind. Anyway, I agreed to follow them deep in the forest with my machete. It was supposed to be for emergencies only, but I didn't care. A chance to piss off my old man and get with my dream girl? At the time, I thought of how there was no way that I could pass this up. Even with the red flags waving in my face, as if to say that if I kept going, I wasn't coming back. We went through large mud piles where I was pretty sure I would finally get to kiss Aubrey as I escorted her through it safely. However, as you could tell, she rejected me. We continued on before my sister stopped. Okay, so now that we're far enough from the adults, here's the thing. We found a random door with a chain and lock on the doorknob. The problem is that we can't undo the damn lock to see what's inside. I should have known it would be something stupid. Oh, don't be a wimp, Carlos, Aubrey said with her hands on her hips as she rolled her eyes. Yeah, come on, you love adventures, and it's better than sitting at camp doing nothing but listening to Mom and Dad argue, Delia said. She had a point. Up until now, all our parents seemed to do was argue, and it was better than giving myself time to process how stupid I was for liking Aubrey. Fine, let's go then, I said defeated. Oh, cheer up. Who knows? Maybe there's enough gold there to get you 1,000,000 girlfriends. None as amazing as me, but still pretty close. I couldn't help but to giggle with them. Aubrey could have said worse things to cut me deep. I know this because my former friend Chad transferred schools after he tried to ruin my name to get with Aubrey. Besides that, it wasn't like I was smooth enough to get with her, and it made me feel better. Weird, I know. If I had to guess, it had taken us at least another 5 to 10 minutes before we arrived, and I had to admit it. It was pretty cool to look at. It was a dark brown door with a rusted chain to it. The door itself was attached to a mound of clay that was taller than me. To give a good visual, I'm 6'3", and both the mound of dirt and the door itself were at least a foot or two taller than me. At first, I pulled on the door to see if it just looked like it was purposely built into this 8-foot clay structure. I then pulled on the chain, and though it was rusted, it was still as strong as a brand new chain. This 8-foot by 8-foot structure fascinated me. The mound was round, and yet the door looked perfectly fitted to it. I smelled around as I began to wonder if this was for some kind of sewage thing. But there was no smell. I knocked on the door, and though I shouldn't have been able to, I heard a hollowed echo on the opposite side. It was as if my knocks reverberated against the door and into a possible tunnel. I didn't feel right about the door. I told them that I wanted to leave, but the more that I explained why, the more they kept saying that it was just all in my head. Against my better judgment, I used all of my frustration and whacked the wooden door repeatedly. I have no idea how, but by accident, one of my swings missed and broke the chain instead. I expected cheering over my idiotic success, but all I heard was, "What the fuck was that?" from Aubrey. and I don't know, but I think we should go, from Delia. Suddenly, we heard a large scream come from out of nowhere as the ground beneath us shook. We expected to hear birds fly off somewhere, but the forest was so quiet that I could hear my own heart beating in my ears. I had never been so glad to see Mom and Dad in my whole life. Dad came running with a shotgun, and Mom was right behind him with her pistol strapped to her side. As if by instinct, we raised our hands up as Aubrey begged my dad not to shoot. Fear was plastered on my face as I knew he saw the machete a few inches next to me. "Dad, I can explain," I said as my dad lowered his shotgun. Mom ran at us and held both me and Delia tightly. She asked if we were okay, and we both reassured her that we were. That's when I realized a few things, but was too scared to say anything. The trail we took was about 20 minutes from camp, and yet Mom and Dad arrived instantly. I wanted to believe that they were just following us closely, but if they did, Dad wouldn't have allowed me to use the machete, and Mom would have rubbed it in his face of how I wasn't ready to own one yet. Yet, even after all of that, it never happened. I suddenly heard a loud, sickening crunch as my sister began to scream and cry. I tried to move, but I couldn't move, as I felt large claws bury themselves deep within my back as I coughed up blood. "Did I do good, my lord?" Aubrey said as Delia's body went limp next to me. I was covered in her blood and my own, but the only thing that I could do was cry. Tears fell down my face as my vision was getting dark, before I felt razor-sharp teeth pierce deep into my neck. I heard Aubrey beg the creature to spare her because they had a deal. My only regret is that I didn't get to watch her suffer like she made my sister, Delia. I screamed a blood-curdling scream for a few seconds, and then, just like my sister, I went limp as the creatures that pretended to be our parents continued to eat us alive. I really don't know what I unleashed upon the world by opening that damn door in the woods, but the only thing I can say about it is this: if you see a random door in the middle of the woods, no matter how much you don't believe my story, for the love of God, don't open it. You don't want to know what's down here with our trapped souls. It's not worth it. As the old saying goes, some things are just better left alone in the dark. If you have any of your own stories and would like to submit them for narration, please go into the link in the description and submit your stories to the subreddit to see your stories featured here. And as always, thank you for visiting the Panic Room. You have successfully made it to the next portion of your tour. Please stay tuned for your next prompt. Click the like button and subscribe to receive notifications for when the next portion of your tour is ready to join. Thank you for watching. Don't let the panic drown you.